And for example, in Roman times, if you had the Roman dinar, even if it had the exact same gold content, that was valued more compared to, let's say, a golden coin of the Parthians, which is a kingdom that is nowadays Eastern Iran or something like that. Romans never actually ended up conquering them. They actually killed one of the most important figures in Roman history, Marcus Crassus. He was the guy with the money in the first triumvirate. Caesar, Crassus, and what's this race? Uh, the bull. I can't remember now. Anyway, uh, Caesar conquers all sorts of stuff. So Crassus is envious. He said, I'm going to found an army and I'm going to go conquer Parthia. He gets captured and he had a reputation that he was the richest man in the world. Do you know how they killed him? They melted a big pot of gold and they poured it through his throat. It was fitting to his life. So we have different sorts of currencies, and those currencies exchange with each other. The question is, how are those exchange rates determined? I mean, precision, reputation is one of them. A Roman gold dinar always was viewed more valuable compared to, let's say, Parthian, because Romans probably didn't secretly introduce some silver or copper into that. The gold content, you believe if they said it was 99% pure, you believed it was 99% pure. In terms of monetary system, come on. Until about 1875, we had a system called bimetallism, which means we had currencies issued in gold and silver mostly. And between 1875 and the First World War, that actually was a gold standard, which meant any currency that you issued was backed up by stores of gold. And there was a fix between any currency and gold. If the fix was 1 ounce of gold is equal to 1 pound, or yeah, 1 ounce of gold is equal to 10 British pounds sterling. If you took 10 pounds to Bank of England, they were required to give you 1 ounce of gold. And similarly, if you took your 1 ounce of gold, they were required to give you 10 pounds sterling. Similarly, there was a rate between, gold and French franc, gold and Deutschmarks, and what have you. So the exchange rate between different currencies, it was simply determined by, their fix against gold. If 1 ounce of gold is equal to 10 British pounds and 1 ounce of gold is equal to 30 US dollars, what's the exchange rate between pound and US dollars? What do you think? Remember, we have a common thing. 1 ounce of gold is equal to 10 pounds. 1 ounce of gold is also equal to 30 US dollars. That means 10 pounds is equal to 30 US dollars. So 1 pound is equal to 3 US dollars. So that's the exchange rate. Remember how we calculated the cross currencies using US dollar as common? In this case, it's gold as common because that was the reserve asset in a sense. That was the gold standard, but the gold standard collapsed as soon as World War One started because the countries that were in the war, the major ones at least, Britain, Germany, France, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, they needed to finance the war, right? Well, how do you finance the war? You could tax people, but there's only so much you can tax before there's a revolt, as Russians ended up finding in 1917. And or you could print money. The trouble is, if you're under gold standard, you cannot print money. So they ended up getting out of the gold standard. So gold standard effectively ended with the start of the First World War. There was some attempts to get it back in line after the war, but the losing countries of the First World War, they needed a lot of financing. I mean, Germany, Austria, even in this case, Soviet Union later. Do you guys remember about the inflationary periods in Germany and Austria and Hungary too? Hungary became a separate country after First World War, as did Poland. Because Poland was not an independent country before the end of the First World War. They were pretty much shared between Russia, Germany, and Austria before that. But after the war, they became an independent country. you guys, have you guys heard anything about how high the inflation was in 1921, 22, 23 in Germany? Millions of percent. I mean, they couldn't print the money fast enough to catch up with the inflation. There were banknotes for 1 billion Deutschmarks, or they called them Reichmarks those days. Same thing happened in Austria, Hungary. Why? Because, that's partly because of the French. French insisted that Austria and Germany should pay war reparations, and they were very punitive. And how are you going to pay them? Well, you print money and you pay them. The trouble is, printing money creates inflation. If you're looking for an indirect reason for rise of Hitler, it's France actually. Because if it wasn't, I mean, two things happened. One, the German psyche was crashed because they lost the French, because they had demolished the French in 1871, and that war between France and Germany in 1871 was kind of the catalyst for German reunification. Before that, Germany was into hundreds of different city-states. I mean, there was one big one, Prussia, but that was pretty much most of the Eastern Germany and Poland, of course, as well. But most of the Western Germany, all little states. And that war with the French actually acted up as a catalyst, and Germans unified. So it was a big crash to their psyche. And on top of that, because of those war reparations, and they went through all that inflation. Who loses when there's inflation like that? Rich guys or the poor? The poor, okay? Because rich guys have non-monetary assets. Nothing happens to them. I mean, you're a poor guy, you get paid in the morning, let's say 1 million Reichmarks. By the time you finish your shift that day and are able to go to the store, prices have increased 20%. So while working, your paycheck went down 20%. That brings big time poverty, and extremists in the entire history of the world always feasted on poverty. This is the same thing with Nazis, same thing with Islamic terrorists, Taliban, even the Russians. It's all the same thing. That's one of the reasons gold standard was never truly recovered. And before the Second World War ended, it was almost obvious that the Germans and Japanese were going to lose It was just a matter of when, once the Allies had a beachhead in Normandy, this was just a matter of time. They actually had a meeting in 1944 in a quiet little town in New Hampshire. The name of the town is Bretton Woods. That there was an agreement there. They basically decided modified gold standard. That's going to be monitored by two institutions. One of them was IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the other was World Bank. International Monetary Fund can give assistance to countries if they have balance of payment issues. And we're going to talk about more of those when we talk about gold standard. And World Bank typically gave development loans. A country needs money to develop irrigation methods so that they could increase, agricultural efficiency.